Welcome. So here's the thing. I saw something on social media today that stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't what they were saying. It wasn't even really what they were doing as they were reporting out on a live on social media. It's what they said after they had begun to tell a story that raised anxiety. And they said in the middle of the live, let me regulate. And then they proceeded to do so. They closed their eyes, they took a deep breath, and that's what I want to unpack today. That moment was so powerful because sometimes we think that in order to regulate, we have to do it before or we have to do it after we've been triggered or the anxiety comes up. But this was an example in real time of doing it right in the middle of the moment. It was so powerful that I had to share this story. We've been taught typically to respond immediately, right? We live in an immediacy kind of culture. Text back right away immediately, answer the email, defend yourself when someone says something, explain yourself, correct something if someone is saying something that is incorrect, make a decision, say yes, say no, fix it, right? Right away. It has to be right away. But especially for women who have spent years trying to fix everything, trying to be everything to everybody, that immediacy can cause us to be unregulated, right? There is such power in saying, just give me a minute. Just let me have this minute. And I think in that social media post, it even took less than a minute for them to do that. But television is so, which is really what social media is, right? It's so quick, 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 as it is in life. We want to respond. We want to keep the viewers engaged to get more clicks, right? But it was so powerful. And that is not what this person is on social media for. They're very political. They were talking about an incident that happened in real time, but they showed us that they knew how to regulate themselves and what was needed for them in that moment. They knew about their internal responses, right? So typically we go from trigger to reaction right away. But that pause, it should be a trigger. There should be a pause. And then there needs to be some kind of awareness, self awareness of what's going on. Then we can make a choice on how we want to respond, right? That space between whatever that trigger was in the midst of it, even, and then our responding. If we can begin to learn how to lengthen that space, will become so much more powerful. And know that the pause isn't the same thing as necessarily avoiding something, right? This distinction is really important. So you're not avoiding anything when you choose to pause. Some people think of the pause as maybe I'm running away from the situation. Um, I'm avoiding conflict. You can always come back later, though, if you decide after the pause that you want to continue to address it. Sometimes we think refusing to communicate shines a bad light on our personality or who we are. But you can always say, I want to have this conversation, but I want to have it when I'm in a state when I can respond. Because what I say right now, because our words hold so much power, we could hurt a relationship if we don't learn to take that pause. So you're not abandoning a conversation when you say that. You're taking care of actually the person you're going to have the conversation with as well as yourself. Knowing when to say to yourself, I'm activated, and recognizing that is so powerful. They didn't shame themselves, right? When she said, let me regulate, they didn't say, why am I acting like this? They didn't pretend they weren't feeling what they were feeling. They said, hold on, I need to regulate. And they didn't talk you through how they were doing it. They showed you what they were doing. And that's the beginning of being regulated, right? That's the beginning, is knowing the notice. Then, and she probably did this internally because she literally said, let me regulate. I watched her breathe in and out a few times. And then she said, okay, I'm going to continue. And she continued her conversation, right? She didn't feel it and suppress it and maybe say something that she didn't want to say on her live. I'm not sure. She didn't pretend. She didn't explode. She stopped. When we're activated, everything can feel really, really urgent. I have to answer this now. I have to do this now. I have to not feel what I'm feeling in this moment, perhaps. I can't let them get away with that, trying to fix everything. So ask yourself when you get into those situations, is this really urgent? Because it really might not be that urgent. It feels urgent when we're activated, but it really may not be urgent. It may be something you can come back to. And then also, this is a big one. Try to think about if you're that person that has to have the last word. That's very pervasive also in our culture, right? We don't always have to have the last word. Or the last word doesn't have to happen immediately, even if you are that type of person, right? Sometimes I think we have to learn how to let go and know that there is power in that, right? Just because somebody provoked us doesn't mean we have to respond. Um, Lately, and I really think that this has been some sort of trigger response, but I've been watching a lot of Asian television. And no, I'm not watching the ones where they're speaking Korean or whatever their language is. I'm not there yet. So I am watching it dub. But it's so interesting because they don't respond seemingly like we do. And yes, I know it's television, I know it's a show, but they let things kind of hang in the air. And I'm really drawn to that, right? I'm really drawn to that. So that's something that I want to begin to do more and more in my daily life. I think for strong Black women, the pause might be especially uncomfortable because we've been socialized to have the answers right away, to be prepared, and to not be prepared. Sometimes we feel like that's a reflection on not being perfect, right? So sometimes the pause can feel like, if I don't handle this, who will? And if I don't handle it now, things are going to get out of control. But if you're out of control, nothing's going to be in control. Whether or not you respond or not, it could just escalate if you don't learn to take that pause. But here's another question. What happened when the woman who always handles everything finally gives herself a minute? What happens? Think about that. Also, regulated doesn't mean that you're emotionless, right? It doesn't mean that you can't still be angry after you've had your pause. It doesn't mean you can't still say no or set boundaries. It doesn't even mean that you can't still walk away. That might be the decision that you come to after you take that pause. You're choosing your responses instead of letting your activation choose it for you, right? So, I want to give you a practice. And the practice is called give me a minute. Just give me a minute. So maybe you say that to yourself, maybe you say it to whoever you're interacting with, but stop, right? Take a breath and a really long exhale just to notice where your activation is showing up, right? Making that exhalation longer than the inhalation, that immediately calms the nervous system. When we take a breath and we make that exhale longer, we're going into the rest and digest mode of our nervous system. And then ask, what do I want my response to accomplish in this moment? What is the best move for me in this moment? Sometimes we're always thinking about how to appease the other person or how to respond to the other person. Flip that. What's best for you to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish? And then choose. And sometimes, again, that response is wait. Sometimes it's maybe don't respond at all. So I want you to start saying, give me a minute. You can do that at work. You can do it in the middle of perhaps an argument. You can say, I want to respond thoughtfully to this. So let me come back to you when I'm able to do that. With family, you can say, let me just collect myself for a minute. Online, try not to trigger yourself by responding to some of the craziness that people put out there, maybe even in response to something that you've posted. I simply choose to delete it, right? If it's so crazy, why give that energy? That's energy that I can give to something else in my life. So every time we're pausing, we're asking ourselves, can I trust myself? Right? Letting go of whatever other people may think about it. Letting that go. Can I trust myself? Can I trust myself not to respond immediately and allow that to be okay? Can I tolerate maybe the discomfort that might come along with that, particularly this is not something that you would normally do? Can I take my time? Can I allow myself to make decisions from a place of clarity? I often say in all of my practices, only go to your edge, right? And your edge is that place between if something is easy and something is hard, your edge is right in the middle. So the goal isn't to never become triggered because honestly, that's not really going to happen, right? But we can respond with something a little different. You don't have to respond right now. You don't have to explain right now. You don't have to fix anything right now. Give yourself a minute. Wait, let me just take a minute. Take a breath. Understand what's going on, right? Feel, notice what's happening inside. And then allow yourself to decide. Because sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do isn't to say something, it's to create enough space to decide what our next move is going to be. So know that your pause is not a weakness. Know that there is power in the pause. Don't forget to remember what you already know. Be well.